Hey everybody, JC here, and welcome to another Thursday night live stream. I had to think what day it was. It's been that kind of week, but GI Joe Classified, I'm sure is on a lot of folks' mind. Dragonfly, we got the stretch goal number 2 revealed this morning, so we're going to talk about that. And then whatever else is on your guys' mind, maybe we'll talk a little bit about San Diego Comic-Con, which is about a month away. So, what we might expect next month with Comic Con. So, before we get into anything, though, let us just do a quick roll call, see who's in the house. So, we've got Masterverse Collector in the house. Welcome, welcome. Everett is in the house with many, many questions as usual. Welcome, Everett. Thousand Wolves is in the house. Good to see you. Quinn's Comics is always my friend. Good to see you. Hope all is going well at the store. Michael is in the house. Has anyone watched Transformers Rise of the Beast? I have not seen it yet. I am waiting for home release, but hopefully you did enjoy. I've seen mixed reviews on that one. So I feel like with that movie, that's one of these movies where people went in with very low expectations, and so the movie was better than the low expectation, and so they ended up liking it more than they thought they were. I'm not sure, and I haven't seen it yet, so obviously I can't say for sure, but I'm not sure the movie is actually really really good, but maybe just better than most people's expectation, and therefore ended up coming out of the theater liking it. But hopefully you did like it, Michael. I'm sure you're probably going to go see the Flash movie this weekend, which I have seen that one. So hopefully you'll enjoy that one as well. T-Glue is in the house. Welcome, T-Glue. Blake is in the house. Blake says, does this mean we're getting a retro Scarlet? I would say almost definitely. Somebody told me there's already been a leak list indicating retro Scarlet was coming. I haven't seen that for myself, but yes, this new stretch goal figure is basically a repaint of Scarlet, of a classic Scarlet, which is what the original figure was based on. So I feel pretty confident that we will end up seeing a retro Scarlet. And while we're talking about that, not only retro Scarlet, but some indications here. Let me get down to the big picture. So this gun here is the exact gun that the laser rifle specialist Flash uses. I think Grand Slam maybe as well. Those were the same figure. One was painted with red pads and the other was silver. I can't remember if Grand Slam had a laser gun or not, but this is essentially the laser gun that Flash has. So I have a feeling that would be an indication that there's a Flash figure in the works coming to the line at some point as well. But this figure, this mold is Scarlet. You can see she's even got the throwing stars on the glove, which is in keeping with the original figure. But again, the original figure, which was an overseas release, I think in Argentina, was just a repaint of the original 3 3/4 inch Scarlet figure. So that's why Hasbro kept the throwing stars on it, just like on the original figure. But this is just a repaint essentially of Scarlet. So I'm sure that is there's plans to give us a retro like Scarlet figure in the classified line at some point. And I gotta say, with this head sculpt, this blonde head sculpt, if you've been looking for like an alternative for CoverGirl, I have a feeling this might work pretty well. So not only could this figure, this is going to give us probably classic Scarlet, but this head sculpt could probably work with your CoverGirl figure if that's something you're interested in. So Matthew's in the house. Good evening. Finish our roll call here. Ruben is in the house. T-Glue. I think I mentioned you before, T-Glue. All right. So looks like we got a pretty full house. So I was debating whether I wanted to do the giveaway for the Dragonfly tonight or maybe wait till next week. I was wondering if maybe people were going to be going to see the Flash movie tonight and not tuning in. But it looks like we got a pretty good crowd in here tonight. So I think we'll go on and do the giveaway. So if you're not familiar with these Haslabs, what I do is is I'll do a random drawing here at some point this evening towards the end of the live stream. You know, usually the live streams go for about an hour or so, so as we get closer to the end. And then I will just randomly scroll through the comments and pick a name of a person, basically closing my eyes, and just wherever the cursor lands, that person wins. So it's as random of a drawing as I can make it. And basically the way it'll work is I'll announce that winner's name. They will have 24 hours to email me. I'll put the email in the video description, and they'll need to email me, provide me a mailing address and their full name. And then I will go to the Haslab website, purchase the Dragonfly, and put your information as essentially the contact information and the mailing address to where they send it. So when Hasbro gets around to finally shipping them, one will just go to your house. So that's how it works. I did it with the Sky Striker. I did it with the His Tank. So I figured we'd do it with the Dragonfly as well. So if you're not around, like if you're here early and you end up can't staying through the entire stream, again, I'll be scrolling through, so you could still end up having your name drawn. So you'll just want to make sure that you come back tomorrow, scroll through this video. It'll be a regular video by tomorrow, and just see whose name gets called out. Make sure it wasn't your name, because you'll have 24 hours to basically claim your prize, is how it'll work. So just note, again, if you don't stick through the entire stream, that's fine, but just make sure you remember to check back tomorrow and see whose name was called. Make sure it was not your name. So that's how we're going to do it. Sometimes I do toy trivia, but this way is a little bit easier. I didn't have time to really come up with good trivia questions for you guys tonight, so we'll just do the random drawing thing for tonight. But let us get back to the topic at hand, which is the Haslab Dragonfly. So so this is stretch goal number 2. Jane Glenda Mulligan is the character's name, and again, if you're not familiar with this character, this figure back in the original 3 3/4 inch line was only released overseas in a very limited way. It wasn't through Hasbro per se. It was through one of the overseas companies that was essentially handling GI Joe back then, and she never saw release here in the United States. Now Hasbro has done versions of Scarlet wearing this blue jumpsuit in both the 25th anniversary and then more recently was one of the stretch goal figures in the Sky Striker campaign, the 3 3/4 inch Sky Striker campaign. So essentially same figure. With those, they actually just called her Scarlet. Again, this original figure was a repaint of Scarlet that they gave essentially a different name and some different gear and stuff. So now this is the thing. I like this figure. I think it's kind of a cool figure. Like I said, I may try and use this head sculpt for my CoverGirl figure. But I feel like, as far as whether this is a good choice for stretch goal number 2, I gotta say, honestly, I feel like no, it's not. And because I think more people than not are not going to know who this character is. So she's basically just going to be a completely unknown character. And, I'm not sure it's going to be enough to get us to 16,000 and more specifically to 19,000. So last night, the campaign, fairly late last night, I want to say around 9 or 10 o'clock last night Eastern time, it broke the 13,000, which unlocked the first stretch goal, that Night Force Ripcord. And since then, this campaign's only gone up 209 backers. So in about almost a 24-hour period, it's only gone up 209 backers. Now that's not horrible, but being we got the new reveal of the second stretch goal today, there was not a huge boost from that. And so, part of this 209 is the little teeny boost that the figure, I think, gave, which is going to quickly die off. And so this is going to just kind of creep along And yeah, there's a little over a month to go. The campaign lasts until July 17th. So we still have time, but I feel like it's going to take most of that time to get to 16. So I think there's a decent chance it'll get to 16. But the thing is, you know, by that point, there's probably not going to be enough time to get to 19,000 backers for the third stretch goal. And so if the third stretch goal, which I'm thinking is still likely going to be airborne, there's not going to be enough time left to get to that 19,000. So that's the problem I see with this stretch goal. I would have much rather Hasbro, if airborne is the third stretch goal, I wish they had made that the second stretch goal, and that way, if we didn't get to the third stretch goal, which would then be this figure, it wouldn't be that big a deal, I think, in a lot of people's mind. So that's really, again, the figure itself, the Glenda figure itself, I have absolutely no problem with. I just don't think it's enticing enough, because keep in mind, this campaign is funded. So we've got the 10,000, we've got the Wild Bill, those are definitely coming. We now have the Ripcord. I don't think the Ripcord was really that exciting of a stretch goal either, but you know, this campaign got over 10,000 backers in just over 24 hours, and then was still chugging along for quite a bit. And so a lot of that additional, you know, between the 10,000 and 13,000, a lot of those backers came from just the initial interest in the campaign. Essentially, people that were interested enough in just the Dragonfly and the Wild Bill that even if the other stretch goals didn't get unlocked, they were basically like, yeah, I want to add this to my collection. But as we got, you know, as it went on, we definitely saw that the counter slow, and it got really slow for quite a while. Started to pick up a little bit as we got closer to the 13, because I think people just wanted to see what stretch goal number 2 was. But I feel like we're going to go back to that really slow crawl. And so my fear is that we might probably, there's enough time left that, you know, we probably could get to 16,000 and unlock the Glenda figure, but that there, at that point, there's not going to be enough time left to unlock, get to 19,000 and unlock the third stretch goal figure. So I wish they had kind of done Glenda as the third one. Which, you know, again, if the third one is airborne, I'm going to be very disappointed that if that doesn't get included with the campaign. I'm still going to back it, because again, for me, the Dragonfly and Wild Bill is enough to plop down the 275, even if we didn't get any of the other stretch goals. But I'm going to be disappointed if the third stretch goal was airborne and we don't get that included with the campaign. Now, you know, Hasbro could go on and just reveal the third, if, you know, stretch goal, so that if it is airborne and airborne is popular enough that enough people want it, that then gives us the boost to get up to 19. You know, they could do that, but I don't know if Hasbro will do that. They would only likely do that if they really, you know, got to the point where they didn't think it was going to get to 16,000. Then they might go on and show the third stretch goal. You know, they showed they ended up showing the stretch goals early for the Marvel Legend one last year, but they were just getting really desperate, because, I mean, that one didn't even make the minimum funding goal. I don't think there's much danger that, like, the counter is going to start going backwards on this, you know, even if we don't get to the, you know, last 2 stretch goals, because again, I think the core project or the core item on this campaign is just strong enough, and enough people are interested in that they will keep backing it, even again, if we don't get the final 2 figures. So I don't think there's much danger in the counter going backwards, but I do, you know, again, I'm just not convinced that this second figure is enticing enough for those people that are on the fence. They're kind of like, I kind of like the helicopter and Wild Bill, but you know, I'm just not sure yet. So, you know, that's what we're looking for, something that's going to tip people over the fence. And I don't think this figure necessarily is going to do that, just because she's, for 9 out of 10 people, they're not even going to know who this character is. So that's my only problem with the figure. And yeah, I had something else, but now I can't think of what I was going to say. So I guess we'll just, I mean, you know, we'll have to see where things are, you know, where they go. We'll keep an eye on it, but I am not convinced at this point. I'm not saying it's impossible, but at this point, I'm not even 100% convinced we'll get to 16. Only reason why I think there's a decent chance we'll get to 16 is because these campaigns usually always get a boost at the end. You know, those people that wait till the last minute no matter what. And, you know, they come in at the last minute. And so you always get those boosts at the end. So I think that could get us over 16. But I feel at this stage very unsure that we're going to get to 19 in the third stretch goal. Sumble Nation, is Desert Snake Eyes comic canons? I don't think so. Definitely not like the original Marvel run. I can't speak to, you know, IDW and stuff because I haven't read many of those, but I don't really think he's canon. I had thought Hasbro had done a desert version of Snake Eyes in the 3 3/4 inch line at some point, but I noticed in yesterday's video when they were announcing it, they said this was the first time they've done a desert uh, version of Snake Eyes. So I guess this is the first time we're actually getting this version of Snake Eyes. But I don't think I would consider him canon per se. Um, though I guess now he is since he's getting his own figure. Blake, I am ordering one drag. I have no room for more than one. I'm going to be lucky if I can find space for one. I think I'm going to end up hanging it. So I'm only getting one Dragonfly, and then one for one of you guys. But for myself, I'm only getting one. And I actually I have not yet ordered mine either. I'll do the winner and mine at the same time. But I have not actually placed an order for mine. So I will be adding at least one more to the counter here in the fairly near future. Tiglu says, I know you want airborne and most everyone does as well, but do you have an opinion on locking a V1 airborne behind a Haslab limiting that I mean that's a fair question, you know, and honestly you could say the same thing about Wild Bill. You know, I'm sure there are going to be people who don't back this who are going to be upset, even if they end up giving us like a cartoon color Wild Bill. I think more people than not prefer the green color over the blue. So, you know, last year, like when they did the Cobra Commander, I think everyone, including myself, and I still think this, felt pretty confident that, you know, the Cobra Commander with the his tank has that Mickey Mouse symbol on his chest, and that at some point in the line they will give us that same figure with just a normal Cobra symbol on it. So I don't think it was that upsetting. And then like the his tank driver, I mean, do you really need a his tank driver without a his tank? So I don't feel like the his tank driver and the technician and stuff, you know, was a big deal adding it to the his tank. But Wild Bill, even though technically he is the pilot of the Dragonfly, so you might make that argument, do you really need Wild Bill if you don't have a Dragonfly? But I feel like a lot of people will want Wild Bill even if they don't get the Dragonfly. So same thing with Airborne. I don't know. Um, you know, and that becomes a real question with GI Joe. I mean, if you collected the original GI Joe line, many of the figures came with vehicles. That's like the big difference between GI Joe and Marvel. Marvel Legend vehicles have always been as much a part of GI Joe as the figures themselves, whereas like Marvel Legends and Marvel, not so much. That's why I think it's much harder to come up with vehicles that are going to get funded for a Marvel Legends Haslab as opposed to like these GI Joe vehicles, because again, those of us that are collecting mostly out of nostalgia, these vehicles were as much a part of that nostalgia as the figures themselves. But you know, not everybody has $275 to plop down on a vehicle. Not everybody has the space. And, you know, I don't think it's realistic. And that actually is the point I was going to mention before that I said I forgot. I don't think anybody's going to back these Haslabs for one figure. If, like, they revealed a figure that you really liked, I don't think that's going to be enough motivation. And you don't give a crap about the helicopter itself, I don't think there's enough motivation from one figure that's going to get somebody to drop down $275 unless they think they can resell the other portions of it and make their money back. But for the most part, I think most people are not going to be willing to drop that much money for just one figure. But the reverse of that, is it fair to people who don't want the helicopter to put these figures in that were kind of a main part of the line? And since I'm backing one, I'm leaning towards, yeah, it's fair because I want my airborne, and if it can be included with the 275 I'm already spending, so much the better. But I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem if down the road they ended up re-releasing some of these figures in the line. I would not be upset. Some people might be upset if they did that, but I would not be upset if down the road they reissued some of these figures, made them available to more people. Again, down the road. I feel like Airborne is neat. I mean, he was, just like Wild Bill, he's featured on the box art of the original toy, and if they keep, if they recreate the box art from the original toy with the new packaging, then he's going to be on the new packaging as well. So I really feel like Airborne is almost 100% got to be, I won't say 100%, but like 99.9% that he's got to be the third stretch goal. And I can even understand to some extent Hasbro thinking, well, let's leave the best stretch goal for last so it will help us get over the finish line. But unfortunately, in this case, I think the problem is their first two stretch goals were so weak that they didn't, the third one is going to be a hard press to get them over the finish line, especially if we don't even find out for sure what the third stretch goal is until the second stretch goal is unlocked. So I don't they've already said Hawk's coming in the main line, so I don't think they're going to give us two Hawks at the same time. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think the third tier will be Hawk. Articulated Doom, thinking about doubling up on this one. I mean, if you got the money and you got the space, I think it's a cool vehicle. I mean, it's definitely something you could army build, but like I said, I'm going to be lucky if I can find space for one, let alone two. When I say weak, I mean just not enough overall appeal. I have no problem with either figure. I would have rather had a regular Ripcord than the Night Force one. But I mean, it's a cool looking figure. So I'm not digging on the figures themselves, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint of how much appeal are they going to have to a wide audience? Um, and unfortunately, I don't think either the Night Force Ripcord or this Glenda figure have that much wide appeal. So that's what I mean by weak. I'm not to say the figures aren't cool, because they both look pretty cool, and I have no problem adding both figures to the collection. But do I think they're going to bring enough extra appeal to the campaign to get us over the 19,000? That's where I have my doubts. Articulate, yeah. I mean, and again, I'm gonna probably hang mine from the ceiling somewhere. But I mean, the thing is long. It's not like, I don't think it's not wide, but it's long. So the good news to that is, if you've got a wide shelf but not necessarily a deep shelf, it might have a shot at fitting on that shelf. Whereas, items that are wide, like the Hiss tank, is going to be wide. So that is going to be, you're going to have to, if you want to put the Hiss tank on a shelf, it's going to have to be a pretty deep shelf. But like I say, with the Dragonfly, because it's long but fairly thin, I think, you might have an easier time finding space for it. No, you're right, Tiglu. Airborne was a separately sold figure back in the day. You're 100% correct. Uh, but I mean, another question, which we really can't answer, but will this line, this classified line, have enough longevity to get to all the characters out in it? And I don't know. Uh, Sorry, Ryan, I missed your super chat, but hey, JC, glad to hear. Agree with you. Even the weaker figures are really well done. Could fit any collect. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, forgive me if my wording is, when I say weak, I don't mean it's a bad figure. I'm not attacking the figure. I think both figures look good. I'd be happy to add both figures to my collection. But I'm looking at it from a stand. I'm looking at it from a marketing standpoint. I'm looking at it. Are these figures that people are going to connect with and incentivize them to be willing to drop $275? So that's how I'm looking at it right now. I'm not, critiquing the figures themselves. And I've seen people make stupid comments. Like I saw somebody on Facebook like say, "This figure is based on Emily, and they're just being woke, giving us a female character." I mean, that's like as dumb as you can get, being that this figure is based on a figure that was made back before Emily. I don't know how old Emily is, but possibly before she was even born, or at the very least when she was a kid. And so I don't think it's based on Emily. And there's plenty of female characters in GI Joe, so I don't see anything woke about it. So I'm not attacking the figure itself. It's just, again, a character that was never released in the United States, a character that, unless you're like ultra hardcore, probably have never heard of, and therefore it's just not going to be as appealing. So that's what I'm talking about when I say weak. Articulate. About to kick my wife out. Yeah, I would never do that. Bad idea. Bad idea. Eric, late to the party, but would like to know if you've seen the images of the new Mondo Skeletor, and if so, what are your thoughts? I've seen the two teaser images, if that's what you're talking about. The Dragon Blast, what looks like, essentially it looks like they're doing a deluxe version of Skeletor like they did with He-Man, that'll have the different harnesses and stuff, so you can recreate the different versions of Skeletor. But I've not seen like full-on images, so if those are out there, I haven't seen them. Now we should see those tomorrow, because I think the figure goes up for pre-order tomorrow. But so again, if you're talking about the two teaser images, then yes. I figured you were kidding. Otherwise, your wife might have some unkind words. Ergen is feeling very confident and thinks this is going to get over 20,000 easy. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't sit here and tell you you're wrong. In fact, I hope you're right. I've just, I'm giving you my opinion on what I've seen so far. And I watch all these Haslabs. I've watched every Haslab pretty closely since the first one. I've watched the Mattel ones. And so, you know, I have a feel, but like I'm not crunching specific numbers, and things could change or what have you. But right now, I all I can tell you is I personally don't feel super confident that this is going to get to 19,000. Probably a fair chance it'll get to 16 by the end of the campaign, But right now, I'm not feeling super like when this campaign started, I thought we're not going to have any problem getting through all the stretch goals. I thought it was going to be very much like the His Tank, where like we were through all the stretch goals in the first week. But we definitely, this one saw a huge slowdown after, you know, the first couple of days. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because the Cobra vehicles are considered more cool. I don't know if it's because people weren't as impressed with the stretch goals, you know, maybe because it didn't have an early. I didn't think the early bird figure added much to these things. In fact, I felt like they ended up hurting them sometimes. But, you know, who knows? Maybe not having the early bird figure hurt. Though I think the lack of the early bird figure is a large part of why this is about $25 cheaper than last year's Haslab. But you know, I don't know. But definitely it did not perform quite as good as the His Tank last year. And it has definitely slowed down to a significant pace. But you know, so I'm not, it's not like I want it to not get to 19,000. I want it to get to 19,000. I just, right now, based on what I'm seeing, I have some concerns. But again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict the future. And so I'm not sitting here saying 100% this is not going to get funded. I'm just saying, again, I have concerns. Michael, yes, there is going to be a surprise. I'm actually was kind of surprised they're doing another Transformer live stream so soon, but yes, Tuesday. And because you're probably going to ask, doesn't look like we're going to get a Marvel Legend live stream until San Diego Comic Con. In fact, it will be at San Diego Comic Con, which will not be live streamed by Hasbro themselves. So likely somebody like MCU Collector or somebody will live stream it like they did last year. But it looks like that's going to be the next Marvel Legend live stream is at San Diego Comic Con. Well, not live stream because again, they're not live streaming it from Comic Con, but the next event where they show reveals and information about new products is going to come at San Diego Comic Con for Marvel Legends. I don't think she looks like Sue Storm, but like I say, I think that head sculpt. If you want your cover, if you want a blonde cover girl, and she has been blonde before, I think that's a great head sculpt for cover girl. Christopher, yeah, I mean the his tank met its minimum goal under 24 hours. This one was a little bit over 24 hours, so it took a little bit longer to get to its minimum goal, but not much. But then I'm pretty sure the His Tank met all of its stretch goals within the first week, where this one definitely is not going to do that. So now, one see, and again, another reason why I'm leaning towards it being airborne is we are basically getting the same figures that Hasbro did for the Sky Striker as we're, you know, those. So we got the the Sky Striker, the 3 3/4 inch Sky Striker. We got a 3 3/4 inch Night Force Ripcord. We got a scarlet and a blue flight suit as opposed to, you know, this character, but we got essentially a very similar figure. And then we got the pilot or the co-pilot of the Sky Striker that was featured on the box art of the Sky Striker. Now, that character had never been done in a figure before, but again, you know, if they follow course, if they give us the character that's on the box art of the Dragonfly, then that would be airborne. I would guess it's going to have some toy reveals. I don't know how many, but What's up, X? Great. I agree with you. I think Cobra tends to be more popular than the Joes themselves. It's GI Joe, but I think people gravitate to the Cobra stuff more than the GI Joe stuff. So I agree with you there. Mark, you're right. IDW did, years later, did it end up has included her in the comics, but going back to the original line, she was basically just an overseas release. She was never in the cartoon. She was never in the original Marvel comic run or anything like that. But yeah, at some point here more recently, IDW did feature her in the comics. Greg says Airborne is the deciding factor. Ronan, I don't understand why they can't do these vehicles like they do the Titan Transformers. As in, like, release them at retail? Um, well, I think there's a few reasons for that. So, first of all, it's been a while since they've done a Titan Transformer at retail. When they first started doing the Titan Transformers, we still had Toys R Us around. So they were more willing to carry very large items like that than a Walmart or Target, which I don't think would ever carry a Titan size transformer on its shelf. They might put it online, but they would not have it on their shelf because it's too expensive and takes up too much space. Um, they do the combiners. They have been doing combiners as Haslabs, and or they just sell them individually, but we have not had like a really big transformer item on at retail for some time now. So, and a lot of those I think ended up just sitting on shelves. So, I don't know if they sold really well at mass retail. So, I think those are all factors for why. And then the final factor is Transformers in general is more popular, especially with younger audiences than GI Joe is. Maybe not back in the '80s, but today, I guarantee you, there's more people that buy Transformers than they do GI Joe. Um, so those, I mean, I can't tell you 100% why, but those are the reasons why I would suspect that they can't do it like that. Yeah, the arc is not as you're right. They did do the arc, and that was in some show. But the arc, I mean, I have the arc sitting right in front of me. It's not nearly as big as like Metroplex. I mean, the arc is more the size of a combiner. So, and again, cartoon backing. The arc had a cartoon backing it on Netflix. Transformers just in general, I think sell better. So a Target's gonna be more interested in carrying Transformer products than GI Joe. I mean, we can barely get 6-inch GI Joe Classified figures on shelves at most physical retail stores. So, you start talking about really big vehicles. Yeah, but Scorponok came out a long time ago, and Scorponok, I don't know if I saw, I don't know where I saw Scorponok, but maybe it was Target, but it did not sell very well. Like it just sat there. Like I think it ended up getting clearanced out. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's why you're seeing Hasbro essentially merge GI Joe and Transformers. We've got the new comic Energon universe or whatever. Minor spoilers, but a certain military force has appeared in the latest Transformer movie, and there are rumors that there's going to be a crossover movie coming. So I think that in large part you're seeing Hasbro try to more tightly attach GI Joe to Transformers to try and bring it up in popularity and maybe make it more retail appealing, outside of you know the adult collectors. I mean, no doubt GI Joe has a following, and among adult collect. I mean, GI Joe Classified is probably one of the best lines out there right now, but it's still, you do not see it have a heavy presence at physical retail stores. Um, and I think the reason is because GI Joe just does not have the following that, say, like Transformers does. Blake, I was disappointed Ripcord didn't come with a parachute. Your Halo jumper, you should have a goddamn parachute, right? I thought that was a missed opportunity. Well, Christopher, Buzz Lightyear, which was part of a major blockbuster movie, is not really a good example of comparing it to G.I. Joe. Something it's much more appealing to younger kids. It's got the large entertainment properties backing it up. Yes, retail will be much more inclined to carry even larger stuff for things like that than they're going to be for something like G.I. Joe or Masters of the Universe. I would be surprised if you end up seeing Snake Mountain on any physical store shelves. The upcoming Snake Mountain playset. I have a feeling that's going to be only primarily available online. So, you know, it's not just the size of the item. That's one factor of it, but it is also, just the overall popularity of it. And if there's something that's being backed by a large entertainment property, that is always going to be more appealing to a large retailer like Target and Walmart. Everybody knows who Buzz Lightyear is. Not everybody knows who Firefly is, or Scarlet, or some of these GI Joe characters. Everyone probably knows by now who Snake Eyes is. That's why you see so much Snake Eyes stuff. But Buzz Light, the popularity of Toy Story and Buzz Lightyear to GI Joe these days, hands down, Toy Story is going to be more popular. I'm tempted to address that comment, but honestly, I don't want to go into. I don't want to go down that road tonight. So I swear to God, if they did stickers so you can make it a Cobra vehicle, that was like the Cobra sticker decals for the Sky Striker. I mean, that wasn't like a major thing, but like, I mean, come on, who's gonna put Cobra decals on their Sky Striker? Ronak said, I mean, I think like if Walmart or Target wanted to carry Snake Mountain, I think they could. But yes, I think if you want to add Snake Mountain to your collection, you're going to be better. I would be very surprised if you see it on shelves. I mean, I think retailers are moving away now that like the kids series has been canceled. I think the larger retailers are kind of moving away from Masters of the Universe. And let's be fair, a lot of that Masters of the Universe stuff has just sat on shelves. Again, Masters of the Universe has a following of diehard collectors, but when you start getting out more into the mainstream, He-Man does not have the following like it did back in the 80s. You're right, Chris. Cobra Commander would. I mean, kids today just don't play with action figures that much. I mean, let's be honest. Most kids I see today, they've got an iPhone in their hand by the time they're 3 years old. I mean, that's just kids today. So, they're watching TikTok videos or YouTube videos of people playing video games or whatever dumb, crap that they're watching. But action figures and that like of that are just not on many kids uh want lists these days. And if even if they remotely get on there for a little while, again, the time a kid today plays with an action figure is not nearly as long as like a kid did when I was growing up. Of course, I still play with action figures, so I guess I'm not a good example, but still, I think you know kids when I was growing up played with stuff like that a lot longer than kids today do. Uh, I wouldn't hold your. Let me put it this way. I guess Mattel has not officially come out and said it's canceled, but I wouldn't be holding my breath for another season of that show. Kids today will be nostalgia for memes. Sadly, that might not be too far from the truth. I think everybody. I mean, anyone who collected GI Joe, I think, always loved the Rattler. I mean, the Night Raven was probably a cooler vehicle, but I'm willing to bet more people had a Rattler than they did Night Raven. I mean, part of that's just because the Rattler came out first, but so we've got at least one more season coming for that. We'll see if we get another season after that. But yes, we definitely have at least one more season coming sometime this year. They still haven't given us a release date or anything, but yes. If it were up to me, Michael, I would love to see the series continue. I just don't think it's gonna happen. But I mean, yeah, for me personally, I enjoyed the Netflix the CGI series, even though it was made more for kids. I enjoyed it, but I just don't think we're gonna get another season of that. I'm not sure they'll ever come out and officially tell us it's never coming, but I don't think we are. I think that one person who was involved with the show when they inadvertently said the show was done, I don't think they misspoke. I think they might have gotten in a little trouble for saying that publicly, and so they backtracked. And that's just I'm basing that on opinion only, but that's my feeling. So that's why I don't think there's much chance we're going to get another season. Henry, well, if you're talking about the pace today, you might be right. But the thing is, I don't think it's going to keep that pace today. I think it's going to start slowing down very quickly. The boost you're seeing today is because we got that new reveal, but it wasn't like a huge boost. Like I said, we haven't even gone 200 new backers since the second stretch goal was announced. And so as time goes on, that's going to get slower and slower and slower. You're not going to get faster. You're not going to, except for at the very end of the campaign, you're only going to see it get slower and slower and slower. So, yes, if it stayed, I mean, you can, if it stayed at the rate that it was when the campaign kicked off, we would be fully funded by now. But it's slowed down, and I think it's going to continue the direction. It's going in the wrong direction. Again, I don't think it's ever going to go like the counter itself is not going to go down, but the pace of the counter going up is going to continue to slow. And there's not really anything that Hasbro can do unless they decide to go on and reveal the third stretch goal that they could do to speed that back up. And if we had gotten like a huge boost, like if we were even close to like say 14,000 after today's reveal, then I might feel more confident. But the fact that we haven't even picked up 200 more new backers since that figure was announced. That's why I worry that we're going to get to all the stretch goals. Jerry, I agree with you. My gut tells me Fing Fang Foom. I know a lot of people think it's going to be Goliath, but I think Fing Fang Foom, and I think Hasbro will have a much easier time getting a Fing Fang Foom funded than they would a Goliath. So I definitely feel like Goliath or Fing Fang Foom would be a smarter figure for them to do as a Haslab than Goliath, or Giant Man. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. Ronix. Well, the next Star Wars Haslab, which they're going to announce at San Diego Comic Con, I think is almost definitely going to be a vintage collection ghost ship. So I think that has a fairly decent chance of getting funded, unless the price is like super outrageous. But but I guess we'll have to see. But I think that is almost definitely going to be the next Haslab for Star Wars, is a vintage collection ghost. Kyle, it's a gray line, I would say. Fing Fang Foom being Avengers themed. I think I mean, the Avengers have faced off against him. Certainly, individual Avengers have. So, Thor, Iron Man, so I think you could make a case for him being Avengers themed. You're right. He's not like a classic Avengers villain, but I think if they wanted to make it work, they could, fit Foom into that Avengers theme. Yeah, it's at 13,227. So about this time last night, it hit the 13,000 mark. So the new figure was announced around 9 or 10 o'clock this morning. At which point the campaign was already over 13,100 or something. So, um, like I said, we we're not moving at a super high pace. It's like I said, if it maintained the pace that is right now throughout every day of the campaign, it would have a shot at getting to the 19. But I don't think that's realistic. I think it's going to start getting slower and slower again. Starting as soon as tomorrow. You kind of expect when they announce something new for these campaigns to start getting a big boost, and we really did not get a big boost off of today's announcement. Mr. Beltran, when do you expect to receive, as in like have it in your hand, or when do you expect it to go up for pre-order? I have no idea when we might get it in our hand, but I think it will probably be going up for pre-order within the next month. If you're talking about the Jada Toy Wave, that is. I should be. I just ordered Ryu off of Amazon. It's supposed to be essentially here like this week. So I have not been able to find any of those Jada toy figures at like my local Target. So, and for me, it's more of a curiosity. I mean, I have like five different Ryus already, so I'm not like dying to get another one per se. But I'm just curious to see how like the Jada toy figures compare to the old soda figures, the Storm collectibles, even the Playmates one, which play the Playmates Chun Li figure that they did in those turtle 2 packs. I thought was actually a pretty decent figure, but I'm interested to see how the Jada toy ones compare. Christopher Vaughn. See, a black. I know a lot of people say Blackbird, but here's the thing about a Blackbird. It's gonna be huge if they did it. if they did a Marvel Legend X-Men Blackbird, it's going to be huge. The Blackbird is not a vehicle that you can really display figures on very well. So it's one of those where, like, if your figures are inside, you're not going to see them. So it's just the Blackbird itself. So I don't think that makes for a very exciting type item per se. The and then there's the price. I don't know how cheaply they could do a Blackbird. I feel like if they did a Blackbird, it would end up being very expensive, probably even more so than the Ghost Rider car, and therefore everyone would balk at the price. A Danger Room, especially if they did it in, like, segments where you could, like, put it all together, I think that would be a really cool idea. It could be a cool display piece for all your figures, all your X-Men figures. And like I said, you could do it in individual pieces, so you could make it more affordable. But, as far as a Haslab goes, I don't know how practical that would be. But again, going back to like I said, vehicles in Marvel don't go hand in hand like they do with, like, GI Joe. So I just think it's harder to get people to invest in Marvel vehicles than it would be for GI Joe vehicles. Jeff, thank you for the super chat donation. Jay, there's 32 days left. Need 5,007 backers for 19,000. That's 180 per day. Every day to unlock the tiers. It could sell. Again, Jeff, you're right. I'm not sitting here saying definitively it's not going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. I'm not telling you it's not going to happen. I'm telling you I am not super confident that it will happen based on what I'm seeing right now. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm 100% not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I'm not feeling super confident at the moment. I would have liked to have seen a bigger boost from today's announcement for this figure, which I didn't see, and so it's causing me to have some concern. But you're 100% correct. It could get to those stretch goals, and we'll just have to see. So again, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not telling you 100% it's not happening. I'm just telling you my concerns as I've been watching it. There's a danger. Yeah, I mean, if we were going vehicle playsets for Marvel Legends, I definitely would be all in for a good X-Men Danger Room. But I don't. It would be hard to do. I'd rather have an X-Men Danger Room than a Blackbird or a Quinjet, something like that. Again, that's not going to be very conducive for displaying figures. So, and again, that's my opinion. I'm not sitting here saying I know there are people out there that definitely would love to have an X-Men Blackbird. So I'm not saying everybody agrees with me that they wouldn't buy a Blackbird, but I do fear, if you factor in probably what the cost would be with how much demand there would be, I I feel like it might be a stretch for them to be able to get it funded. And I feel like after last year, they might be more gun shy to do another vehicle for Marvel Legends as well. But yeah, we'll have to see. Again, not a fortune teller, can't predict the future, so I don't know. But my best guess is Fing Fang Foom. That's my guess, purely a guess. But Fing Fang Foom is where I think they're going to end up going. And if it's not Foom, then probably a Giant Man. But I honestly would not be. If the Giant Man costs the same as a Sentinel or Galactus, I don't know necessarily that I would want to get it. I might end up passing on it if that's what they ended up doing. Everett, I'm not sure of the question. Speaking of Jada Toys, does anybody know if the money has been released yet? I'm not sure what money you're referring to. John, well, we got a Blackbird in the Toy Biz era too, but we're not talking about super elaborate items. And Diamonds Like Toys did those little diorama danger room pieces that you could actually connect together. But if they were going to do something like that for Haslab, I think it would need to be a little more elaborate than like what Diamonds Like Toys did. The front porch of the X Mansion. Not the whole X Mansion, just the front. Everett, no, I don't think Marvel Legends is going to end anytime soon. I agree with you. Kyle says, unless Giant Man were to come with a bunch of cool figures, I don't think I'm going to care. Well, if they do figures, those would be stretch goals. And I am of a firm believer that for a HasLab to succeed, the core item itself has to be in enough demand. I think the Ghost Rider car failed because there just wasn't enough wide demand. Yes, if they had made it cheaper, if they could have made it under $100, then it definitely would have gotten more backers. But I don't think that's terribly realistic. They might have been able to make it a little bit cheaper, but I think the core item has to be popular enough to be fun, that it attracts enough people to get funded, even if the stretch goals are all crap. Okay, the Dragonfly, I think, is popular enough on its own that even if we didn't get any stretch goals, it would still attract enough people to have gotten to 10,000 backers. Same thing with last year's His Tank. I think the Rancor failed because it was not widely popular enough. Enough people didn't want it, and therefore they weren't willing to spend the money. Same thing with the Ghost Rider. So I think the core item, the stretch goals, will are nice to have, and I think for some people, that they can help tip. If you're on the fence, they can kind of help tip you over. But for the most part, I think you have to really want the main core item for these HasLabs and these types of things to actually be successful. So I think the X-Men Blackbird jet would definitely be in higher demand than the Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider car. But I also think, and I don't know this for sure, but my feeling is if they did a really good X-Men Blackbird, it would also be more expensive than the Ghost Rider car. And so, and therefore I feel like that would end up causing enough people to back it. Again, that's just my feeling. I can't say that definitively, but that's kind of where I lean towards. The Rancor, I just don't think had enough demand. I don't think that many people were that interested in a 6-inch scale Rancor. And then on top of that, the stretch goals really sucked. The whole presentation for that HasLab was just terrible. I mean, that thing was doomed from the start. But I still think at the end of the day, the biggest problem with that was just the item itself was not enough demand. That's not to say that there weren't people out there who wanted it, because I know there were, but we're talking about numbers, and there's got to be enough people that really want it in order for it to get backed. Ever, I do not. Those seem to have fallen to the back burner, so we might find something out next month at San Diego Comic-Con, but I don't know when those, or even if 100% those are still going to come out. Jerry says he thinks the X Mansion would look like a dollhouse set, which would open with the interiors. And you're probably right. I mean, I don't know how else you could do something like that without it looking essentially like you described. I mean, for me, Star Wars, I still to this day it amazes me that they've never tried to give us a freaking Death Star as a Haslab. I mean, that to me just seems like a no-brainer. A Death Star. Everybody wants a Death Star. Give us a good Death Star, and I think it would get back like that. But yeah, for some, I don't know if it's like Disney doesn't want them doing Death Stars for some reason. I don't know what it is, but to this day, it amazes me that they have not given us a Death Star as a Haslab. Grayskull and Snake Mountain. I, if you tried to, if you're like comparing that to like X Mansion, I mean, you could do it like that. I mean, that is essentially would be kind of end up being like a dollhouse. I mean, that's how dollhouses are. You've got the front of the house, and then you turn it around, and you've got the little sections that make up the rooms of the house. So, with the Castle Grayskull and the Snake Mountain, they're not really individual rooms. They're kind of just one area, but it's the same thing. Well, I've always felt that the Death Star should be done as modular pieces. They should do them, break them up into different modular pieces that you can like stack. I don't think you could really have it look like a round ball on the outside and then have a detailed interior. I'm not sure that from an engineering standpoint that's too feasible. But I've always felt like a good Death Star would be modular pieces that you could put together and basically at the very least recreate the inside of the Death Star, not necessarily the outside. Blake has Haslab Cantina. That the original Kenner Cantina does bring back fond memories. I don't know how many times those rubber band doors popped off on mine, but they did a couple of hallway pieces, but certainly not enough to complete an actual full-on Death Star. I would go with vintage. I don't, a 6-inch Black Series Death Star. I think is kind of in line with like a 6-inch classified flag. As cool as it sounds, it would even look. I don't think it's too feasible. So yeah, vintage collection Death Star. Quint. Oh, that canteen. Oh, you got to put it together, man. I mean, yeah, you had the back piece, which was cardboard, but the coolest thing about the cantina was the doors because you would like string a rubber band on the top and then you'd like hit the button and the doors would pop open, but the doors would always end up like flying off and the rubber band would go flying. And Ronik says, Hasbro 6-inch scale mobile command center. You know, for G.I. Joe? Yeah, classified, I don't think so. Same thing, like, I don't think we'll ever see like a classified Defiant space shuttle. Blake wants to buy it from you, Quinn. What's up, John? Nighttime for me, but good morning to you, my friend. Oh, Quinn, are you talking about like the more modern Hasbro one? I'm talking about the vintage Kenner one. All right, well, it's getting kind of late, so if you're just joining us, so I'm gonna give one of you guys a chance to win a GIJoe Haslab Dragonfly. Because it is fully funded, you definitely will be getting it. Sometimes we're like, well, you only get it if it's funded, but it is fully funded, so you will definitely be getting it. So I'm just going to randomly scroll through the comments here and blindly select a name, try and keep it as random as possible, and that person will end up winning. So I'll call that person's name out. There'll be an email in the video description below when this becomes a regular video. The email is j@enewsi.com, enewsi.com. But you'll need to email me to claim your prize. I'll need your full name and your address that I will put when I go to buy the Haslab. I will put your information in the Hasbro system so that when they start shipping them out, it will just ship, it'll ship from Hasbro to you. So, once I give them your information and pay for it for you, basically everything else will happen between you and Hasbro. So that's how it's going to work. So let's go on and draw one person. And if that person does not happen to still be here on the stream, they'll have 24 hours to, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, that, they'll want to come back tomorrow, listen and see if their name was called, and they have 24 hours to basically contact me and claim the prize. If they can't claim the prize in that 24-hour period, then I will probably end up doing this again next week. So hopefully whoever's name is called is still here, but sometimes they're not. So let's scroll up and down, closing my eyes. Like I said, I'm just kind of scrolling up and down, and wherever it stops, wherever the cursor is, whatever name, that's who's going to win. Doe Studios is where the cursor landed. So Doe Studios is the name that was drawn. So I don't know if they are still here. Oh, there you are. Congratulations, my friend. Your name was drawn. So again, I'll put the email in the video description, so when it becomes a regular video, you can find it. But it's j@enewsi.com. Just email me with your name and your mailing address. I will then go over to Haslab and put in the purchase and give them your information. And then whenever they ship it out, one will ship to you. So that's how it'll work. I think we'll call it a wrap there. Though I'm curious, how many people are going to go see the new Flash movie this weekend? Well, it just opened today, so I don't think anybody, if you're here tonight with me, I don't think you've had a chance. Yeah, uncarded review. One thing I have the person who wins do is I have them come back and comment in the section, just confirming that they claim their prize. Because, not saying you would do that, but I want to prevent someone from pretending that they're the winner and trying to email me to claim the prize. So Doe Studios will end up, after he claims his prize, will come back in the comment section of this video and just say, I have claimed my prize. And when I see that, then I know it's really Doe Studios who emailed me. But I'm curious, is anybody going to see the Flash movie this weekend? Not going to give spoilers here, but if you heard my video earlier this week or read my review on TNI, I love the Michael Keaton portions of the movie. Otherwise, though, I was not super impressed with the movie. I thought the story had just way too many plot holes, didn't make a lot of sense. Really left you feeling like, what was the point of any of this? The cameos were kind of cool, but they really didn't add to the story. I will tell you that this movie, the Flash movie, gives McFarlane Toys, I would think would give McFarlane Toys an opportunity to bring us some pretty cool figures that they might not otherwise have an opportunity to do. I'm not saying they will, and I've not seen any indication up until this point that they're going to. But I'm saying there it seems like at least would be the opportunity. So I can't I didn't feel like the cameos, most of the cameos really added anything to the movie, but I felt like gave us potential for some possible pretty cool figures from McFarlane Toys. So that could be very one good thing about the movie. But well, Quinn, not only is Ezra Miller in the movie, he's in the movie twice. There's two flashes throughout most of the movie, so you got to deal with Ezra Miller. It's double the Ezra Miller. So if you hate Ezra Miller because of his actions in real life, or you just hate his version of Flash, you're gonna have to deal with two versions of him. And I will admit, his Flash didn't bother me, that setting aside his personal issues in real life as the actor, setting aside the art from the real life stuff for a moment. I didn't mind Ezra Miller as the Flash in like the Justice League movie, and it wasn't horrible in this movie, but there were definitely times where he kind of started to grate on me a little bit. So, I mean, I don't imagine it was easy. Like I said, he was sitting there basically having to act off of himself because there were two of them. So, yeah, that couldn't have been easy, but there were definitely some times where his portrayal of the character really kind of started to grate on me. There were other times where it was completely fine, but there were a few times throughout the movie where it was like, oh, enough. But so yeah, but if you're going to see it, especially if you're going to see it for Michael Keaton, I mean, that is definitely the shining part of the movie, is Michael Keaton as Batman. He did a great job. I mean, as old as Michael Keaton is today, he still was able to pull off some pretty cool moves. I mean, obviously it was probably stuntmen, but still, he was able to. He didn't look like an old man trying to, be a superhero. He did a really good job with that. So, that is definitely the best part. The problem is the movie is essentially kind of broken up into three parts. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And Michael Keaton is really only in that middle part. So that probably takes up almost half the movie, but there's still much of it where Michael Keaton's not even in the movie. So that's why I probably would say that, while I love the Michael Keaton parts, it wasn't enough to make this what I would consider to be a good movie overall. That's not to say that I'm sure people will come out of the theater, saying, "Oh, this was the great," and I've already even seen it. People, "This is the greatest movie in the world," and I'm like, okay. I mean, Tom Cruise said it was like the best DC movie ever, and I'm like, yeah, no freaking way. I don't know what Tom Cruise was smoking when he watched the movie, but no way that I would put this in one of my top DC movies. I mean, the original Michael Keaton '89 Batman movie is way better than this movie. The Kristen Bale Batman movies, especially the first two, I think are much better than this movie. Even the extended version of Dawn of Justice and the Snyder cut of Justice League, I thought were overall better than this movie. So I definitely would not put this as one of my top favorite DC movies. But if you're going to go see it, hopefully you find enough in it that you enjoy. Again, Michael Keaton does not disappoint in my view. It was great to see him on screen. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away any kind of spoilers, but I'll just leave it at that. But yes, John, he was going to be in that Batgirl movie, but they scrapped that completely. So I have a feeling this is probably going to be the last time we see Michael Keaton as Batman. Now, the bright side is you will be seeing Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice again, and from what I've read, Michael Keaton has said that was probably the funnest movie he's ever filmed. So if you're a big Beetlejuice fan, it sounds like a sequel is coming that you might enjoy. You don't remember like you never gone back and rewatched the '89 Batman movie? I mean, I was in high school when, in fact, I had just moved to the Washington D.C. area when that movie came out. So like, I didn't have a whole lot of friends at that point because I was new to the area. But I remember, I was in ninth grade high school when that movie came out, and I remember, I still remember seeing it today. And it's really, I had been reading Marvel titles. I started comic reading with GI Joe and Transformers, and at that point I had branched out to others like Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff. But the Batman Michael Keaton movie is really what got me into DC. I had not been reading any DC comics up until that point, and that really got me interested in DC comic titles and figures. I mean, my first Batman figure, which I have today, is that Toy Biz 5-inch Michael Keaton Batman figure. So that was like one of my first comic book based action figures that I had ever gotten. So definitely fond memories. And Michael Keaton, like because both Ben Affleck, which I did not think did a stellar job in this movie, personally, but definitely like, because they're both in the movie, that they're not in the movie together, okay? But you essentially get to see one of them fight, and then you get to see the other of them, in their fighting style and stuff. And to me, Michael Keaton is just, he embodies what I envision Batman from the comics to be. The way he moves, his gear to me is always much more, like his grapple gun. I've always preferred his grapple gun to the more modern grapple guns that we see like Affleck or even Bale use. The way Keaton uses the Batarang to me is much more in keeping with what I think of as Batman than like we've seen others use things like the Batarang. So to me, everything says much more. To me, this movie hammers in the fact that Michael Keaton is the one true best Batman on screen, at least up until this point. And when you kind of get to see the Affleck Batman, which again I liked in the Justice League for the most part, and even Dawn of Justice, but in this movie, I don't think he did as good a job as Batman. And then when you see him and kind of get a comparison between him and Keaton, I think Keaton definitely outshines Affleck. All right, so we'll leave it at that. Let's see, Jerry, you keep coming up with I remember one with Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, that was the second Michael Keaton Batman, and I actually do not like that movie as much. I've never been a huge fan of that. I actually kind of like the Val Kilmer Batman movie better than that second Batman. I don't know why. I just have never been a huge fan of the second. I mean, it still had good parts in it, but it just was not as good to me as the first Michael Keaton Batman movie. And when I recently went back and watched the Val Kilmer Batman, and there were definitely points in that movie where I started to cringe, like all the neon crap and stuff. I was like, oh God, this is so bad. And then I've always hated the George Clooney Batman movie. All right, well, we're gonna leave it at that. But as always, guys, thanks for coming in tonight. Listen to me ramble about things. Let's hope that the Dragonfly gets to 19,000 again. I have my doubts, but I certainly would like to see it get to 19,000. So let's hope that it does happen. And until next time, guys, stay safe out there, and I'll catch you guys later.
Hey, thanks for watching today's video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell notification so alerted every time I upload a new video. And be sure to head over to the Toy News International and Marvelous News message boards communities. It's a great place to talk toys and win cool contests like $100 store credits to Big Bad Toy Store. And remember, action figures are great.